My life changed. I made one really fucking terrible decision that I paid an enormous price for. It began this 9-year journey for me of darkness. I've been drinking for about 150 days in a row. I didn't expect to come home. I had committed to basically committing suicide. I was so lucky, dude, because I had this whisper in the back of my mind and it just said, just make it to your sister's wedding. I got a phone call and it was one of the guys that I had met in the rehab facility, and he goes, man, have you been following up like what's been going on? And four overdoses, a murder, and a suicide within 6 months. That was a highly impactful moment of my life where I just kind of thought, okay, like how can I make a difference to this? And in that exact moment, I realized that I was going to take all the skills that I had, all of the potential that I had from that younger Keegan, and figure out how to make an impact to that community.
And we are live. Keegan, how are you, brother?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I've noticed you've done about 800 of these.
We've done quite a few, for sure.
Holy shit. Well, honestly, what a blessing to be here. I'm so excited to chat with you and your community. And my intention and my hope is just that we can help some people today with this vulnerable conversation that we're about to have.
Yeah, man, let's just peel the curtain back and dive right into it. So first of all, I've got utmost respect for people that start a business, a brand, whatever, out of a way to kind of scratch their own itch and solve their own problems, which it seems is exactly what you've done. So give me the backstory, man. What was the origin story? That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I guess I've been to the top, and I've also spent some time at the bottom. And my experience about what the top is for me is just being super proud of who you are and being proud of the person that you look at in the mirror and not wanting to trade your life with anybody. And so I had this amazing momentum as a younger person, my high school years, and then for a couple years after high school. And I was cruising, man. I was just absolutely excited about where I was going and the potential that I had within me. And, I had some, I don't usually share this part of it, but I was, captain of my high school football team. I ran a successful restaurant right out of high school. Then I went back to school and started learning about business. And that really got me excited. And I had a summer job in 2007. Mm-hmm. And they hired me to go to New York City in 2008 when I was 23. And the year between that summer and showing up in New York City in 2008, my life changed. I made one really fucking terrible decision that I paid an enormous price for. I ended up, experiencing depression and anxiety at a level that I had never experienced up until that point. And I ended up dropping out of university in my third year of university. And by the time I actually showed up in New York City, I went from kind of being this version of myself, about the same weight, the same kind of athletic-ish body. But when I got to New York, man, I'd been drinking for about 150 days in a row. And I had never at that point ever drank more than 2 nights in a row on a weekend or whatever it might be. And so, that guy that had all that potential, I remember taking this flight to New York City and honestly, man, wishing that I could have traded my life with any other person on that plane. I literally have this vision of looking at the back of the heads on this plane and thinking that to myself. And so the reality is by the time I got to New York, man, I was so depressed. I was so lost. I was still showing up to work, but I had been, like I said, I'd been on this roll with alcohol for quite a little while, and I didn't expect to come home. I had committed to basically committing suicide that summer in 2008. I was only 23, as I mentioned, and I've got this vision of standing on this 28-story building and my waist bent over the top of this building and looking down at the ground. And it was what could have potentially been the last kind of seconds of my life. And I'll never forget this because there was a garbage strike that summer in New York City, and I was looking down at the ground and it was just covered in trash. And my mom and dad were actually in Fiji. It was my mom's dream vacation. They were on this trip, and I was so lucky, dude, because I had this whisper in the back of my mind and it just said, just make it to your sister's wedding. And she got married 30 days after this event. And so I guess, the story kind of starts there. I ended up clearly making it, made it to my sister's wedding, which I emceed. But honestly, man, it began this 9-year journey for me of darkness. It was just this unbelievable amount of pain that I was in. And over the years, it started off, camouflaging the alcoholism. I was hiding it really quite well. But by the time I got into rehab, man, in 2016, for the year and a half leading up to it, was the first guy at the liquor store at 9 o'clock in the morning and the last person at the liquor store at 11 o'clock at night. And so I guess the story starts there, man.
What was the catalyst for going? Because I mean, like, some people can drink and not have an issue with it. A lot of people drink in high school and they're trying to figure out who they are and what they're capable of. If you were drinking, a couple nights a week and then all of a sudden it became this daily habitual thing, what was the catalyst for you taking it to that extreme?
Well, it was the running and the numbing, right? Like Gabor Mate, he talks about, alcoholism being it's not why the addiction, it's why the pain. And for me, I was just in this tremendous amount of pain. Alcoholism in my family genes. So my father was Irish. So I'm Irish. And for generations, literally my grandfather, his grandfather, my father, and then ultimately me, all became alcoholics. So there was something in the genes, but like I said, until this moment, in 20, before I got to New York City, I had a really reasonable grasp on life. Like I was able to put it down. But for me, it was like once it got to that place where it was like maybe 30 days in a row, it became a full-blown addiction, man. Like I literally, I remember going to the airport when I landed back in Calgary after my summer in New York and reaching for my passport to give it to the customs agent. And my hand was shaking. It looked like I had Parkinson's, for anybody that might not be seeing this video. So I was addicted. I got addicted really fast. Yeah.
Well, what was, how was that affecting just your day-to-day responsibilities? Like you said, you were going and showing up at work, but like, how was that impacting everything else that a lot of people take for granted? So like your sleep, your relationships, your health, your food, like what was the impact on all of that?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, it was a dramatic impact, right? Like you don't see it while you're in it, but like I can tell you, man, I couldn't forecast what my life was going to look like outside of 24 hours from where I was. It was always this fixation on making sure that I had enough alcohol, in my system to not withdraw. And, I did a pretty good job with it, man, for the first kind of like probably 6 or 7 years. But then the year and a half leading up until when I went into rehab, it was basically me just giving up. Yes, I didn't jump off that building, but the damage that I had caused my system, my mental health, my actual physical health, by the time I ended up in rehab, Robert, the catalyst moment for me was I was in my room. You asked about sleep. The sleep was horrendous, man. I was never able to sleep probably more than 4 or 5 hours straight. And when I woke up, I literally was at a place with the addiction that I had to get alcohol in my system when I woke up. So having beers throughout the night just to quote unquote stay asleep. And there was a time, man, that I never thought I'd ever have this conversation. The amount of guilt and the amount of shame that came with this lifestyle, to be here with you today and sharing this with the world is something I never thought I'd be able to do. And I'm quite proud of the comeback. I can tell you when I finally got into, well, there was a moment in 2016, the summer of 2016, where my eyesight started to go, and I was starting to feel numbness in my arms and in my legs. And as insane as this sounds, it excited me because I thought I was going to die. I was just in this place, man, where I just didn't want to live anymore. And so I thought that my health was going to deteriorate to the place that I wasn't going to survive. But what ended up happening was I took a trip to the hospital because my heart rate was just going insane. I couldn't see, you know, those old fashioned alarm clocks that have the big red numbers. I couldn't freaking read the alarm clock across the room. And so my eyesight was going. And so I went to the hospital and they ran my blood work. And I'll never forget this nurse coming back. And she goes, "Oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before." And she goes, "Your blood sugar is so high that the fact that you haven't slipped into a coma is mind-boggling to me." And she goes, "I'm going to send a doctor to come down and talk to you." And the doctor finally came and she goes, "Hey, like, I don't know how to tell you this. You're a type 1 diabetic. Your pancreas has stopped producing insulin altogether and you got to be hospitalized. We need to get your system back to kind of equilibrium." And yeah, man, I spent 4 days in the hospital, and those 4 days were life-changing to me because, you know, I literally, I got to see in my mind's eye what my funeral was going to look like. I got to see who was going to come to my funeral and the impact that I was going to make on this world. And honestly, man, that was the catalyst for me to get myself into rehab and to take the gift of rehab from my parents. So that's kind of where it all began, man.
Did you try getting off the alcohol at all prior to that point, or was it just kind of like a downhill spiral all the way?
Yeah, no, man. I had wanted to give up alcohol for many, many, many years. And the truth is like it had gotten to a point where it was actually dangerous to because the withdrawals with alcohol and benzodiazepines, for anybody out there that, you know, is interested, it's very dangerous just to quit cold turkey. And in fact, it could kill you. So those are two things that I think, you know, your people need to know. And I tried to go cold turkey, and what ended up happening just before the diagnosis with diabetes was I ended up getting the diagnosis with diabetes, but I ended up, I just lost my train of thought. My doorbell rang, just so you know. Sorry, just to stay there for a moment. Yeah, essentially my whole entire system was collapsing, dude. Like I ended up having a seizure. That's what I was looking for. I have to share something with you really quickly that's kind of funny. So my neighbor, we have 2 cats, and they are outdoor cats. We've just moved into a new house, and where we are in Calgary, Canada, they've just passed a bylaw that cats can't go outside anymore. So I'm pretty sure I had to let them outside because they were so pissed. Last 4 days they've been inside. So I let them outside for this podcast. And I'm pretty sure that's my neighbor coming over to give me shit. Anyways, back at it, man. I just thought I'd share that with you.
Oh man. So like the benzo, so you were on the alcohol, you were on the benzos.
I wasn't on benzos, but I do know a lot about withdrawal and the dangers of withdrawal coming off of alcohol or benzodiazepines. If it's not done correctly under essentially a detox situation, it could kill you. Those are the only 2 substances that I'm aware of in the world that you really need to be monitored. If your addiction is at a level that, you know, like what I'm explaining here, you got to go into a detox.
Man. So like what were it sounds like you're pretty close to your folks. Like what was their response throughout these years of you being clearly addicted to the alcohol?
Yeah, man. Well, like at that point, I think I hit it really well. I hit it through basically just pure isolation. Like I kind of disappeared from the world. Like I'd still go to the family events, but I was the last guy to get there and the first guy out. And so, yeah, when my parents got to the hospital, they were basically, they at that point had seen the severity of where this had, you know, where this had gone. And it was kind of the first time that I'd been fully exposed to the core of the addiction. And it was one of those moments that where they were scared. I was scared. My wife was there, and so I actually met her at the wedding, my sister's wedding. You just saw her on the camera helping me get the mic set up. And it was, I think for all of us, it was just like it was give this a shot or you're going to be on your own. And that combined with the health collapse, combined with, this vision of seeing my funeral playing out in front of me, I was so blessed, man. My parents sent me to this rehab facility that was completely based around mindfulness techniques. So breath work, yoga, meditation, getting in touch with Mother Nature, incredible food, and of course, all sorts of counseling and therapy. And the whole idea of going to rehab is trying to reverse engineer how you got there. What happened in your life, whether that be in childhood or whatever it might be. For me, it all stemmed back to childhood. But the reality is, I was blessed to go to a facility like this. It's really one of a kind. And, you asked about how this all began. I'm going to share just a moment with you that really stands out in my life. This particular rehab facility there was a lot of highly successful people there. There was a lot of entrepreneurs. There was a lot of either ex-professional athletes or professional athletes, supermodels. And then there was just kind of like everyday people like me that were there. But it was the first time in my life that I looked at addiction a little bit differently and just kind of realized, wow, this can honestly happen to any of us. And, we're all just this one traumatic moment away from potentially picking up that bottle or picking up whatever that substance might be. But here's what happened, man. I was in a 28-day program there, and on day 27, the founder of this facility sat us all into this massive circle. There was about 30 people there, half male, half female. And by the end of it, man, like, you're so connected to these people that like they know so much about you. Every single thing that you've been hiding, stuff deep down inside of your core that maybe your family doesn't even know. By the time you're about to leave, you've tried to unpack everything, because at least for me, man, I kind of looked at this as being, this is my only shot, right? Like, the cost of coming back to one of these facilities was so far out of reach for me at that time that I looked at this as being, it's do or die. But here's what happened, man. This woman sat us in this massive circle, and we all sat around, and we kind of looked at this as being this like pep talk to go back out into the world. Like, I'm just getting excited because I had this little glimmer of hope for the first time. But she goes, in a very serious tone, she goes, look to the person to the left of you. And we all take this look, and she goes, that person's dead in 365 days or less. And the air in the entire room got sucked out, and everybody started to tear up. It was one of those moments, dude, that just kicked you so hard in the stomach. And it wasn't what I expected. And then she goes, look to the person to the right. So I looked at the person to the right, and she goes, that person's back in one of these facilities in 365 days or less. And in that exact moment, I realized that I was going to take all the skills that I had, all of the potential that I had from that younger Keegan, and figure out how to make an impact to that community and to make a difference in those numbers. And I had no idea how the hell I was going to do this, man. Like, I had no idea. When I walked out of rehab the next day, my wife couldn't come pick me up. The reason being is because she had to take a ferry to get there. We had $28 to our name, dude. I was $70,000 in debt. I had 10 years of unpaid taxes. So if you're listening to this, I just want to let people know that these comebacks can absolutely happen. I had no idea how this was going to happen, but I ended up getting out of rehab, changing the people that I had around me, changing the conversation that was happening within my brain, listening to all sorts of, inspiring motivational people. I started to get into self-development and trying to figure out how to become a better version of me. And, it took an entire year to get my confidence to a place that I would ever be able to have a conversation like this. 365 days, at least, before my brain started to kind of function the way it is today. But I got committed, man. I got committed to this path, and I just kind of thought, in the beginning, I'll make as much money as I possibly can, and I'll send a person to rehab every year for the rest of my life. And that's going to be my commitment to this community. But here's what happened. 6 months out, I got a phone call. And it was one of the guys that I had met in the rehab facility. And he goes, man, have you been following up like what's been going on? And you think you're going to stay connected, but in my case, I didn't stay connected to really anybody. But after so he goes, you got to sit down. And anyways, four overdoses, a murder, and a suicide within 6 months. So 6 of the 30 people gone in 180 days, man. And so again, like that was a highly impactful moment on my life where I just kind of thought, okay, like how can I make a difference to this? And I think it's maybe important to note, man, that yes, my father had an alcohol issue, but my dad had his master's in psychology, and my dad was building social programs in the United Kingdom for the underdog, particularly people with mental illness and addiction issues. And in the last 10 years of his life, he passed away right at the start of this project in 2021. He actually relied on the programs that he built that are still in play today. So there was a part of my DNA that he basically passed the torch on to me at some capacity. But I went on for the next couple of years. I had some moderate success as an entrepreneur. I really didn't like what I was doing. But I was in some big roles, and the money started to come in, and I got those taxes paid, and I kind of caught up to the rest of the world. And then I started to have this horrendous anxiety, man, going into my own office, downtown Calgary. On the surface, it seemed like it was everything I wanted, but the reality is I was still pretty wounded inside, and I couldn't figure out why is my anxiety raging. And I started to have panic attacks. I don't know if you can relate to any of that, but these panic attacks, for anybody that has been through one, they're debilitating. And so I had my first panic attack, and at that time I was about 3.5 years without a drop of alcohol. And I thought, holy shit, I am going to relapse. And I kind of blew the whistle on myself. I called my family and sat my wife down and said, hey guys, I'm struggling. I'm having this crazy anxiety, and it just seems to me like the only outlet is to drink again. And I'm scared. And it was literally, this was September 2019. And within a matter of days, I got introduced to somebody that was a mycologist. He's a mushroom farmer. He literally came to my house to do some work on the kitchen. And he shows up at my door, a guy I'd never met in my life. And he goes, man, this is kind of my side hustle. I'm actually a mushroom farmer, and all I want to do with my life is grow mushrooms and save the world. And I said, man, you got to keep coming back and so he kept coming back every day. And by the end of my 2 weeks with him, I had this new friendship that had blossomed out of nowhere. And this guy had nothing, man. This guy had nothing to his name. He lived in a trailer with his dog, but yet he showed up and shook a hand that just crushed my hand. And he made this amazing eye contact. And he had this energy about him that I was interested in. He had some things to teach me. And so that's how this began.
That's crazy, man. So I'm assuming he let you try some of the mushrooms and it made a positive impact on you?
Yeah. So he ended up giving me some mushrooms. And I went to Walmart. I got this little tiny pill press. At this time in 2019, man, there was nothing. There was no research on microdosing. There was nothing out there. You literally have to look across Google and all these sites. There was no place for this information that was under one umbrella. And so I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I knew I had something that could potentially be an amazing tool for me. So I pressed some pills, and I sat with my journal, and I was kind of just waiting for this aha moment. Like I was just waiting for something to happen. And for me, that day came. It was day 13 of this. I'll never forget it. And all of a sudden I started writing in my journal, and I was writing what turned out to be a 3-page phone call to my ex-business partners that at that downtown office in Calgary that I was going to. And it was significant because by the end of me writing this, I picked up the phone immediately and I called these guys, And I executed my exit phone call to an absolute T. To this day, I've never spoken to either one of those guys again. And I walked away from this entire thing. And it was really the first time in my life that I had ever set a boundary. And I know that sounds fucking crazy, but I didn't even know what a boundary was until this moment. So yeah, I had this prolific phone call, dude. And at the end of it, I went, holy shit, my brain is working differently. The way that I just problem solved in that moment is so different than any other way that I had ever done anything before. And then I executed it to a T. And so that was the beginning of this. And of course, in 2019, it was too early for me to want to start a business. I was very excited about what I was reading. There was not enough information on mushrooms that I could get. It was lighting my soul up. I had found my purpose, but I didn't know how to bring it to the people. And so I wanted to buy myself some time. And so what I did was I teamed up with a friend that had a background in psychology in Calgary. And we came up with this baseline evaluation, 13 questions to try to get a handle on where people's mental health was at. And I took that same pill press. We pressed enough product for 40 people. And I invited people to participate in a study. And, if you're a researcher and you're hearing this was a citizen science project, let's call it. I was really looking to see if other people had these profound changes, these shifts in their mental health. And if I was able to see that in enough people that they were impacted, I was then going to take that, and that was going to be my fire to build this business. And so here's what happened, man. I threw this up in the wind, just thinking, man, this is going to take some time to get some traction. Within 2 days, I had 40 people that were so excited to try this. And, at that time, it had been probably 4 or 5 months of me doing research. And so I was able to get, it was the start of COVID too. And so it shifted from doing a live presentation and handing it out and meeting everybody face to face. The day of my presentation was the day the world shut down, that Friday. And so we shifted, we went to Slack. Everybody came to my place, picked up the product. And the one caveat was that everybody had to fill out this questionnaire. And for 6 weeks, we all did it together. And at the end of the 6 weeks, we had everybody do the exact same questionnaire. And then I hired a company to tally the data. And the way the needle moved in these people's lives, Robert, dude, it was enough to make your jaw hit the floor. It was something I'd never seen in my entire life. And there was one person that came forward at the very end of this. I'm allowed to share this story because I have her testimonial filmed. And she said to me that she had already planned her suicide. So she had planned where she was going to do it, when she was going to do it, what she was going to wear, the letter that she was going to write. She had been in and out of therapy since she was 14 years old. She's the same age of me. At the time of this, I think I was 35. And she came forward at the end of it and said, this study saved my life. And she is still alive today. She is flourishing. But dude, I'm telling you, man, I knew that this was going to be a very, very challenging ride. There was nobody doing this when I got into it in 2019. I didn't have somebody that I could watch and learn from. We had to come and create the framework. And today, man, we have created the safest, the most consistent, and the highest vibrational frequency mushroom company that you can find anywhere in the world today. So, but that's how it all began. It began with this curiosity. It began of me looking for a tool that could help me through a really difficult time. And then me looking for my purpose. How can I give back to that community that I'm now a part of, right? There's nobody that I can relate more to in the world to that community. That's who I am now. And so that's how it all began, man.
Let's dive into the specifics. So y'all are using the study was done with microdosed psilocybin, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And what's the dosing strategy on that?
Yeah. So the dose that we used for the study, and it was 100 milligrams. So that's 1/10 of a gram. So 100 milligrams generally for most people, I would say 80% of people, it's a dose that you're not going to feel in your system. So it doesn't get you high. It is completely sub-perceptual and it's completely non-intoxicating. So this for most people would be a dose that, you could get on something like this and you wouldn't even know that it was in your system. But really the results come from the shifts in behavior, the shifts in perspective, the shifts in being a little bit more calm, being a little bit more in your body, being a little bit more grounded, having a bit more regulation to your nervous system. Are you familiar with microdosing? Have you ever tried it?
No, I mean, I know I've had podcast guests and stuff, and I've learned about it through that, but I've not really played around with mushrooms.
Sure.
But how long does it take? Like if the 40 participants, for instance, using them as an example, how many consecutive days does it take for them to start noticing the benefits in their behavior?
Yeah. So I think it's different for everybody. It's, we all live very different lives and lifestyles and but I think for most people, they started to see an impact within the first week. I know for me personally, it was in the second week. By the end of it, 90% of the participants had some sort of a profound experience on the medicine. So a lot of the work that we do is with, sub-perceptual amounts of psilocybin, but we also work in the functional mushroom industry as well. So kind of half our products have psilocybin, the other half don't have any of the active ingredients, and they both have tremendous, incredible capabilities.
It's interesting. One of my employees is a mushroom aficionado, so he's actually growing his own mushrooms as well. He's making these, he calls them lions. It's made from lion's mane, but he's making these chips with a bunch of lion's mane, and it's pretty tasty stuff, man. But he's growing all these, so I'm kind of learning how this whole process of manufacturing it works. And it's super interesting. Mushrooms in general are just pretty freaking amazing.
Well, it is, man. I'm holding a bottle of lion's mane right now, and I gotta tell you, man, it's the most studied nootropic in the entire world. And what a nootropic is, for anybody that doesn't know, is it's essentially, a substance that is that impacts the brain. So almost like a vitamin for the brain. And so this particular mushroom, lion's mane, is incredible for brain function when it comes to cognition and memory and acuity. So it's something that I would highly recommend for anybody that's just looking to for clarity or focus, for brain fog. It's incredible. But then when you stack it with a microdose, the two combined, 5 to 10x the results. They just work so hand in hand together. They're just a beautiful combination together. So what most of our community does is called stacking. And I'm sure most of you might be aware of stacking, but essentially taking a microdose and then taking a functional product and combining the two. And the results are just outstanding.
What is your take on the exact opposite of a microdose, like a hero dose, as they call it, where you're just taking a massive amount with the full intention of having these psychoactive components changing your psyche? Like, is there a time and a place for that for the individual?
Yeah, there definitely is. We're experts in the microdosing side of things. I think for a lot of people, microdosing can kind of tippy toe your way there to doing a heroic dose, a larger dose. And I think it's something you got to be really prepared for. I think you need to be in a place where you're ready for the shifts that come from some of these larger doses. They can be incredibly healing. They can be absolutely amazing for people with depression and anxiety, addiction issues. You're now seeing it in the sports performance world. I'm not sure. I feel like that's a lot of your audience is the athletes. And so I'd love to chat with you about mushrooms and athletic performance, because that's something definitely that is taking place all around the world today. But there's one example. His name's Dan Carcillo, a former NHL hockey fighter. This guy had over 200 hockey fights, professional fights, 2-time Stanley Cup winner. And in his early 30s, he lost his career due to concussion illness, CTE. And what they're finding now with these heroic doses of mushrooms, and by the way, one of my partners is actually a former NHL goalie, and he lost his career due to concussion illness as well. And anyways, they are both incredibly healthy now. Their brains have been repaired due to the neurogenesis of healing the brain with these mushrooms. It turns your brain into the state of what's called neuroplasticity, and it allows connections of your brain that normally don't connect with one another to reconnect, and it can actually heal the brain. So a lot of these major issues that we face, whether it be depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD, eating disorders, concussion illness, all of these disorders are happening within the brain. And for many of those disorders, you kind of get trapped in this portion of your brain. It's called the default mode network. It's called the DMF, if you want to look it up. But in 2018, the Imperial College of London, which is an Ivy League school in London, they really got interested in what the hell was going on in the human brain while taking psilocybin. And the hypothesis was, there must be some sort of fireworks that are going off in the brain. And as it turned out, it was the opposite. The blood flow to this portion of the brain that we get trapped in with all of those conditions that I just messaged, the cerebral blood flow to that portion of the brain actually gets shortcutted. And when that happens, your brain kind of escapes this portion of this default mode network and starts to connect with these other portions of the brain. And so it can get you out of that negative feedback loop. It can help you break out of, we all have this voice inside our head, right? It's considered the ego. And, a lot of times we can get caught and trapped into listening to your ego. And you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not healthy enough. All of these things. And so, but what they found with this study was you can actually break free of that portion of the brain and start to live a bit healthier. So, I think there's incredible applications for people with depression, anxiety, eating disorders, ADHD, absolutely insane. Creativity, man. We work with a lot of creatives. So people that are, the writers, the poets, the musicians, the people that do art, anything creative, we work with them as well. And then on the other side of the spectrum, wildly, we work with a ton of professional athletes and a ton of C-suite executives. And so Michael Pollan's, he wrote a book called How to Change Your Mind. For anybody that's interested in learning a bit more about this, I'd highly recommend you go to this resource. It's one of the first books that I read on mushrooms in 2019. He's turned it into a 6-part series on Netflix. But he speaks about, doing all this research. And he was like, how does this, there's something off here. I don't understand how this can work for all of these things. And he comes back and he explains it this way. He goes, the same way that getting 8 hours of sleep a night works for almost everybody, that's how this works for the human brain. And I just thought, wow, that is profound. So that's what he said he did an interview with Oprah, and that's what he said. That's how he explained it. Yeah, man, maybe I'll just pause there. Any other curiosities that you might have?
Yeah, it is pretty wild, man. I've had several people on the podcast that have struggled with various forms of addictions, and they've broken free of that via, psychoactive components of some form or another, whether it be mushrooms or, ayahuasca or something like that. And I feel like that is becoming much more socially acceptable. And there's like a fine line, like a dance you got to make between when is it necessary to go that route with exogenous forms versus figuring all that out internally. And I don't know the answer to that question. It's going to be, largely individualized based. But you were seeing all of your success via the microdosing strategy prior to, you would attribute your success with it from the microdosing predominantly more so than from taking a heroic dose, right? For you personally.
For me personally, yes. But, it's important. Let me share this with you. I think part of what my role is here is to help people get educated to a place where they can for themselves make a decision whether this is right for them. And part of what I encourage is for people to go and get educated. And one of the things that we've created that we give out for free on our website, which is mindfulmeds.io, is a 62-page microdosing guide. As far as I'm aware, it's the most comprehensive microdosing guide that can be found anywhere in the world. But one of the things that stands out in the microdosing guide that's really important to me, this is literally a page from the guide. And this is a study that is, it's framed as a drug study. It's the most comprehensive drug study that's ever been done really in the world. And this was done through an Ivy League school in the UK, also the Imperial College of London. And it was by this guy named Professor David Nutt. And what they were looking for with these drugs was the harm that it does to your physical body and the harm that it does to your community of people around you. So your family, your colleagues, your friends, your community. And the number one most dangerous and harmful drug in the entire world today, I'll let you have a guess.
Man, I don't know. I want to say something like obscure, like caffeine or something you wouldn't expect. That's probably not it.
It's on here, but I will say, dude, this is alcohol. Okay, alcohol. There's alcohol kills almost 3 million people a year worldwide. And the damage that this has done for generations, you look at my own family tree, man, generation after generation after generation, the trauma that comes from alcoholism. So alcohol, the most dangerous drug in the entire world. I'm sure that the AI is going to pick that up and not love hearing that, but it's important for you to know. So go have a peek at this study. And it goes to heroin next, then crack cocaine, and then methamphetamines. And then it goes down, 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 down. And then there's cannabis. Cannabis is the kind of halfway through the drug study. Cannabis, I'm a big cannabis fan. I'm not knocking cannabis, but it comes with some challenges. It can be highly addictive for people. But at number 0, the very last place on this entire list, Robert, number 0. No one in the history of time has ever overdosed on mushrooms. So the safety profile on mushrooms are incredible. They're so much safer than pharmaceuticals. They're so much safer to all of the drugs in the world. And it's important to note that I don't consider these a drug. I'm framing this as a drug only because of the study. We consider this medicine, and it should be considered medicine. This is Mother Nature's tool that can be so incredibly helpful, but I'll tell you, maybe I'll just pause there because that was probably a big one to hear.
Yeah, man, it's natural, man. Like, I know there's a lot of people in the space that knock the whole natural fallacy, which I get. But like at the end of the day, I would much rather consume something that is growing out in the wild as opposed to a pharmacological concoction that I don't really know. And it's like tightly linked with, big pharma and insurance. Like, I don't want to be a part of that system,
Yeah, dude, I totally get it. And this is what I mean. I mean, it's just about getting educated. The safety profile with this is incredible. And, one of the things that I want to share with you too, that is really important to me is when I got into this, I had to kind of think about, well, wait a sec, we're giving a substance to somebody that might already struggle with substance. So what happens? Like, am I just going is this going to become a problem in people's lives? Here's what I learned through the research, okay? So you talked about heroic doses. So if you and I decided that on Friday night, you and I and our wives are going to get together and we're going to do a heroic dose, and we all got together and we did an 1/8 of mushrooms on that Friday night, we're going to transcend. You were going to go and do some intraversal traveling. If we went and did that same dose on Saturday, we all got together again. We're getting excited to do it again. We all have, we're sharing these experiences. We did it again. All that happens on the Saturday is that there might be some nice color in the lights. The music might sound nice. There might be just a bit, but you don't transcend. If you did it again on the Sunday, And we all got together and we did the same thing, and we're hoping to, to have that experience. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. So you have to, so essentially, mushrooms are non-addictive because the more you take, the less they work. It's the they're literally considered anti-addictive. You cannot get addicted to these. As far as a chemical dependency on the body, there is no chance of that. Psychologically, maybe, but no chemical dependency like all the other drugs. Really freaking important, no. Because that's the first thing, right? Like you look at the rehab model and they go, look at AA. This isn't really accepted in the AA model. But the truth is Bill, who created AA in the 1950s when there was only 10,000 followers in the AA model, he went and did an LSD journey. And he came out of this LSD, he writes it in his book. He came out of this LSD journey and he saw these people holding hands all around the globe. And so he exploded AA, the whole entire model, based on a psychedelic experience. So, but it's not talked about in the AA model. And not to shit on AA because it's so helpful for many people. But for me, this wasn't accepted at the time. I don't know where it's at now, but I think it's just important to know, man, it's not addictive. You have to take this on a protocol. And if you don't, it just stops working.
With the heroic dose, obviously taking that, consecutively, it's got that anti-addictive nature. With the microdosing, is your body building up a baseline tolerance to it to where you would need to have more on a daily microdosed regimen, or how's that work?
Yeah, so you take it on a protocol, and the protocols are different for everybody. And honestly, if you're listening to this and you're interested, our company will actually spend 15 minutes with you for free to give you a coaching session to make sure that we listen to exactly what it is that you're going through and can tailor the microdosing package based around that. And so depending on where you're at, but I'd say for the healthy individual, it's very safe to do a 4 days on, 3 days off protocol, or a 5 days on, 2 days off protocol. That's how I started and found it very effective. But the truth is you begin to get this tolerance very quickly. And so if you were to do it on that day 6, that day 7, it just stops working. So you have to have the breaks to reset the tolerance within the system so it works.
Gotcha. How do you jump through the legal hoops and the red tape? Like, how do you make that work from a business standpoint? Yeah,
honestly, I think policy's moving much quicker down where you are in the US than it is up here in Canada. Yeah, man, we certainly don't ride a magic carpet. This isn't fully legalized. For most of our country, it's decriminalized. But here's what I'm going to share with you, man. I am sure, I'm assuming we're about the same age. And I am sure that police officers, paramedics, firefighters, police, fire, medical, veterans. There's really nobody in the world that needs access to this medicine more than them. They have the highest suicide rate out of any subset of business in the world. They have the highest post-career addiction rate due to the PTSD that many of them have. And so luckily, this is something that we're fighting for. It is so important for us to move this forward. But the truth is, it's still in this phase where, it's not fully legal. And so for me, that means, it means not flying internationally for a little while until it goes fully legal, and really fighting for this. But the truth is let me say this. One of the girls that started as an ambassador for Mindful Meds about 4 years ago, she credited our medicine to help her get out of a violent domestic situation. And as it turns out, her father was the president of the biggest police association in the country. So he at one time held the number one policing position in the entire country. He had 4,500 officers underneath him. And I got to meet him and spend many of hours on not podcasts, but on calls like this, just Zoom calls. And the truth is a lot of what I just shared with you came from him.
Yeah.
And you know, there was twice that we'd be on these hour calls and he would look down at his cell phone and look at me and there would just be this silence. And you knew he would just receive some type of information that, you know, nobody wants to hear, whether that's been a fallen officer or somebody that needs support. And so, yeah, man, I can tell you that we navigate this in a way where we are putting out, like I said, the safest, the most consistent, and the highest vibrational frequency medicine that you can find anywhere in the world. And what we do to make sure we deliver that is something that no other company in the world is doing today. We have well over 1 million microdosing capsules in the marketplace here in Canada. And in the history of our business, we have never done a single return. So we've never had anybody call us and say, this didn't work. There's been situations where we've had to play around with doses and products to get it right for people. But the truth is, what we've gone through here to bring this to the people in the safest way possible is something that no one in the world is doing today. So all of our psilocybin is tested. It all comes from the exact same facility. So it's not, we don't have psilocybin that's coming from different cities, from different growers, from not knowing how this is being grown. It all comes from the same facility with the same intention and purity. It's a guy just like me, man, who struggled with addiction and now just literally wants to give his life to helping that community. But even after we get the mushrooms, we then send the mushrooms to an indigenous elder that has been testing and blessing our mushrooms for 4 years. And this is a step that no one else that I'm aware of in the world is taking. So, you know, it's you're walking a tightrope, but we're saving lives. We're helping people to their core. We're helping people heal and become their best version of themselves. And so, and to be honest with you, man, like I really mean it when we talk about saving lives. Like I told you the story about Jordana, but like we've now been in business. Like just think about the impact of those 1 million microdosing capsules, right?
Yeah.
So
I do think it does seem like it's like people are becoming more receptive to it and there's becoming less bureaucratic red tape. Like, I mean, Tim Ferriss is doing a ton of work in this department. Like it's becoming much more mainstream, it seems.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think people are having a look at the other options, right? Yeah. If you suffer from depression and anxiety and you walk into your doctor's office, they've got 50 different SSRIs and anti-anxiety medications that you can trial. The challenge with going that route, and I think the real difference between psilocybin mushrooms and pharmaceuticals are great. If you want to take a pharmaceutical and run away from the pain that we're talking about, that really is that the germination of addiction is that pain. Well, pharmaceuticals are great because you can put a lid on it and you can forget about it for a little while, but it comes at a consequence, right? Mm-hmm. It numbs you out. It changes you. Your connection to yourself and your family and your friends and your community is numbed out. You become a watered down version of yourself. But with psilocybin, the psilocybin is an amplifier. And so the way that these mushrooms work inside your system is they'll very gently go to that place that needs to be looked at. You know, it's often referred to as the shadow work, or, you know, these little places that all of us have within our systems, but it just kind of gently comes to the surface and it becomes manageable to then heal it. So you literally start to heal the root cause of the pain with psilocybin mushrooms, or you can go with the pharmaceuticals and you can put a lid on it, essentially put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. But when you rip that Band-Aid off, you're going to have to face everything again. And this is why people get trapped on these SSRIs. You know, I talk to people all the time that, you know, are 18 and just graduated high school and have this little bit of depression. And they're in their 50s now. And they're still on this thing, man, but they're desperately trying to come off. So there is hope. The psilocybin is an incredible bridge to help people come off of these SSRIs and anti-anxiety medications without the harmful withdrawal. So we have everything that we spoke about, brother. I give away for free to people in this 62-page guide. I don't know if we can maybe pin it or whatever, but let's get people
Yeah, we'll
access to
put
this
it in the show notes.
information because it's going to save people's lives, man. Undoubtedly.
Yeah, I mean, I've had two family members that, were depressed that went the whole SSRI, pharmacology route. And I mean, not to say that it wouldn't work for some people, but I was not overly impressed with their outcomes with it. So like, I'm definitely all for ulterior methods or alternative methods rather that work better and they don't come with all the downstream negative side effects.
Dude, exactly. Right. And of course, the business model about the SSRIs is you become a customer forever.
Yeah.
They are not designed for you to ever come off. Whereas microdosing, super safe to take the breaks. It is strongly encouraged. Go 8 to 12 weeks, pick a microdosing protocol, give it a good commitment. And then feel free to take a pause and just look back on the 8 to 12 weeks and see how the needle moved in your life. But take a pause. Yeah, man.
So what do you personally like? How do you structure your dosing now, having, shifted your perspective and kind of like broken free of your troubled, past? Like how do you implement it into your day-to-day routine now?
So we have 16 different SKUs. So we design products for, everything that I mentioned earlier. So depression, anxiety, ADHD, creatives, physical performance, and mental performance. So depending on the activities that I have going on throughout that day, often call for a different dose. Like on a call like this, I would never want more than 100 milligrams. I want to be very grounded. I want to be very much in my body. I don't want to buzz. I don't want to feel it. But if I'm on a hike and I'm in the Rocky Mountains, so I said I'm in Calgary, so only about an hour and 20 minutes to Banff. If you're outside in Mother Nature and you're walking your dog or you're going swimming or bike riding or hiking, that might call for a bit of a stronger dose. If you're going to the gym, that's going to be a different dose. If you're looking for, something for sexual performance and libido, that's going to be a different dose. And so our doses range from 20 milligrams, which is the lowest dose in the entire industry. Then it goes up to 50, then to 100, and then all the way up to 350. And the doses, really, it depends on the activities that you have going on and the mood that you're in. Kind of dictates the microdosing dose that you might want to tap into.
When you're doing your off days, do you try and time those off days to where you're doing certain things or not doing certain things, or do you notice any ill effect when you're not on them?
Honestly, brother, like I don't want to overcomplicate this for people. I don't follow a protocol now. Like once you realize what it does in your system, you're going to wake up and intuitively tap into your system, and you're going to kind of know, well, today seems like a great microdosing day or not. So it's not like I have a calendar on my fridge and I'm writing down microdosing day. I've done it enough at this point where I can now use my intuition. And what's beautiful about mushrooms is the glow of the psilocybin should carry you through those days off. And honestly, man, there's people all around the world that are now replacing their SSRI and anxiety medication with a microdose. And so it's kind of more of a long-term play for them. That's kind of what it is for me. I still like to take breaks. But the reality is the benefits are just so profound that it's tough to kind of put down for me. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, totally, man. I got one last question for you, brother. What has got you excited about life going forward now that's totally independent from anything with the business? Something that you took for granted when you were struggling with alcohol, but something that you now put significance in because you have this new light in your life?
Oh, man. I mean, simply put, dude, it's about the relationships that I have in my life today, the people that stood by my side in those dark, dark times. Oh, man, my whole body shivering. So being able to share just these precious moments with family and friends and the people that really want to be in your life, I've just got so much room for those people. We've just recently moved back to Calgary, which is the drama with the cats. And my sister's here. My mom and dad are here. Elisa, my wife, her sister, her brother, our nieces, our nephews. And honestly, man, like our lives, our mental health and lives have improved so much just by being involved with the loved ones. It is, that's probably the biggest difference maker for me because, like I said, man, I isolated for so long and I hid and I didn't make myself available. But now, my niece just turned 16 on Friday and she called me and I got to they all went to a restaurant and I got to see a photo and, all the things. And it's just like, I'd say that's it for me, man.
Relationships are key, man. It's crazy. We take life moves so fast, especially if you're on your own business. But all of that could go away tomorrow. You could be on your deathbed and you're not thinking about any of that stuff. Totally, it's all about the people in your life. That's the only thing that matters.
Totally, brother. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for having me today, brother. I'm so grateful to be able to share this with you and your community. I hope it was helpful for anybody. And honestly, if anybody just wants to get some guidance, some mentorship, some microdosing coaching, we make it ourselves super available in the back end of the DMs. Mindfulmeds_CA. I hope you don't mind me throwing that out. Is our Instagram. And mindfulmeds.io is our website with the resources, the microdosing guide. I'd love to send some product down your way to you and your team. So I'll try to coordinate that if you're open to it. Maybe we'll start with just the functional stuff, the legal stuff. But I'd love to get you some, man, because it's life-changing. Once you figure out a dose and a mushroom or two that works really well for your system, it's incredible. I feel like we could do a 2.0 on this just for athletic performance. We didn't even get into that. So maybe we'll come back if you're open to it and I can share about that down the road.
And send me the link to that study page too, and I'll put that in the show notes as well.
I will, brother. That sounds amazing.
Awesome, Keegan. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Keep killing it, man. Keep changing lives. And if there's everything I can do for you, just let me know, man.
Thanks, Robert. So nice to meet you, brother. See you.
Likewise, man. Take care.